what steps would you say local authorities should take to bring their IT services back in-house?
The first place should ideally be a review of the current services they receive externally, internally, and the technology used. There may be significant opportunities that the business isn't aware of.
So what do you think are some of the common pitfalls that local authorities have encountered?
When you've farmed it out to a managed services provider, it can be hard to identify and unpick those services in order to transition them in the first place, never mind lifecycle manage them to the point that you're happy with. Another facet of the challenges is resistance to change. Moving from external service provision to internal service provision isn't just a technology change, it's an organizational change, it's a culture change.
So what do you think are some of the common pitfalls that local authorities have encountered during that transition, and how do you think they can overcome them?
So I think IT is very much like plumbing. When it works, no one pays the slightest bit of attention to it. When it stops working, people start shouting rather quickly. With that in mind, it's very easy to underestimate the underlying complexity of an end-to-end IT service, especially when you've farmed it out to a managed services provider, either fully or even in a hybrid mode. The alignment of the services you procure to the skills required to deliver those services can often be mismatched if you're attempting to bring them back in-house. The ramp up of training, certification, and experience can't be underestimated, nor can the complexity of your underlying infrastructure. The way that services are delivered has changed significantly over the past decade. There's been a shift from traditional servers to virtualization, to cloud services, to software as a service. And in a lot of cases, there isn't a clear understanding of exactly how any single service is delivered. So it can be hard to identify and unpick those services in order to transition them in the first place, never mind lifecycle manage them to the point that you're happy with.
Yeah, great. I think, as we said, I think the devil's in the detail really, isn't it? And it all comes down to the good planning and good strategic management of what you're trying to achieve, and making sure that you don't underestimate those challenges from the get-go, and the financial impacts potentially as well.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best examples I have is many organizations see cloud first or shift to cloud as a primary strategic objective. That's great. However, you have to be very careful in how you shift to cloud. If you do a straight migration into, say, Azure or AWS with virtual machines, it's probably going to cost you more than it would be to run those on premises. If you transform those services into containerized applications, microcode, etc., it's a lot more efficient. But it's about identifying those opportunities as early as you can and managing that technology and service change as part of the migration, and not just lifting and shifting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because it's, as you say, if you sort of buy into the ecosystem, if you like, and you transition them and transform them on the way, then yes, then there can be a lot of benefits, I suppose, in that. But then obviously that comes with a cost. Absolutely. And complexities as well. So
another facet of the challenges or potential pitfalls that local authorities may see is resistance to change. It's a common feature across not just local authorities, any industry, really. And there's always the risk of people perceiving the change as being detrimental to their work, either increased workload, fear of new technology, or lack of awareness of new technologies. So it's important to consider those elements in how you deliver that change. Moving from external service provision to internal service provision isn't just a technology change. It's an organizational change. It's a culture change. It's challenges across the business from end to end, and those all need to be addressed, considered how they're delivered. Organizationally, any change can be perceived as a risk and potentially threatening to the people delivering that service and receiving that service. One of the key objectives of bringing services in-house should be managing that perception, managing those risks, and ensuring that they're addressed upfront, and that everyone in the organization is clear of the objectives of the change, how it's going to be delivered, and how any gaps, be that training, knowledge, confidence, experience, can be addressed.
I think, what we've learned, I suppose, along the way is that it's so important to translate what you're trying to do into those benefits to the users and to the organisation, and it's making sure that that's I suppose communicated in the right way, because otherwise, if your user base and your organisation isn't coming on the journey, then it can severely hamper culture and various other things and progress as well. So I think that's really important.
Communication's king.
So what steps would you say local authorities should take if they're not sure where to start, but they want to really start that journey?
The first place should ideally be a review of the current services they receive externally, the services they still deliver internally, and the technology used to deliver those services. It can take quite some time to unpick all of that. It may not always be the case that the level of expertise required to deliver that analysis business-wide is available in-house. So it may be a case of having to, as mentioned before, bring on some level of consultancy to assist with that, to bring that external view of the organization to the business, to help with that analysis, to help with the assessment of what the status quo is, what the relationships are, both technical, business, organizational, with the services, and how to unpick those and translate those into an internally delivered service.
I think the business analysis up front is so important, isn't it? Because you don't know what you don't know. And, if you make a mistake at the beginning and you miss something, then it can be very costly later and also drive different decisions and risks and other issues later.
Absolutely. One of the key elements to consider isn't just the order in which the change is delivered, but whether certain services should be transitioned in the way that they are. So there may be significant opportunities that the business isn't aware of, that the internal staff aren't aware of improving that service, making it simpler, making it cost less to the business to deliver. And part of that assessment is to ensure that those opportunities are identified as early as possible, so that they can start on the journey of achieving those efficiencies, realizing them for the business, preferably prior to the transition of service or as part of the transition of that service to the business.
Plus all of the skeletons in the cupboard and the technical debt and all of the gremlins that have been parked away, previously in other projects and other work that you just put off till later all come up, don't they? So
technical debt and dependencies are the killer to project plans.
So it's just keen to really understand what they are and where they are.
Absolutely.
So how do you think local authorities can best ensure that their IT infrastructure remains flexible and future-proofed, if you like, in the future once they've brought it in-house?
One of the benefits of road mapping is getting that clear view of areas and opportunities for change, both in terms of technical strategy and opportunity to improve service to the business. So there's the initial strategic roadmap, which lays out the journey from A to B, whether that be taking services from external service provision back in-house, delivering significant business change, i.e. a move to the cloud in a managed way. And it can also include longer term stuff. So you've got lifecycle management roadmaps, which help which help the business identify those peaks and troughs of activity and areas of risk so that they'll know when products go end of life, when operating systems go end of life, when they're going to have to make significant investments that will allow them to budget and forecast that budget into the future. Then you've got the more technical roadmaps in terms of your generally 2-year and 5-year views. The 2-year view should be used to inform your portfolio of projects. The 5-year becomes a bit more blue sky out towards the right, a bit more anticipatory of upcoming and new technologies, but it helps the business prepare and identify those areas of opportunity that may be coming up that they need to be aware of, that the IT service itself needs to be thinking about in terms of, do we need to certify anyone? Do we need to get experience with this technology? Do we need to consider how we're licensing this stuff? Do we need to tap up any partners to say what their position is, what their opinions are on this technology or this service?
It's exactly right. And also I think it's the strategy is not something that you just do and then you shove in a drawer, if you like, and you bring it out once a year or whatever. It should be something that you're continuously looking at, seeing if you're tracking against it and see if you need to tweak anything, or, as you say, look to what's changed and what's in the industry, what's happening and what's coming up. Particularly with the 5-year plan, as you say. Things that you might want to do in the future, because it can very quickly otherwise be out of date and irrelevant, if you like.
Absolutely. Great point. The business strategy itself is going to change probably on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Every year businesses come out with different objectives or updated objectives. The roadmap should be updated to ensure alignment with those objectives. And as you say, alignment with changing upcoming new technology, the latest shiny thing, may not be beneficial to the business, but you absolutely have to be aware of it to be able to make that as a strategic decision.
Yeah, we can't stop things from changing, but we can try and adapt to that change, I suppose, and try and work with it. And that's the key, isn't it, really? So what advice would you give, if you like, to local authorities where they feel like they would face resistance to change, and how can they maybe try and foster buy-in for that?
One of the biggest challenges for any organization when they're looking at a change of this scope, of this magnitude, is ensuring that voices are heard, opinions are listened to, and both business and personal requirements are recognized as early as possible in the program. Business relationship management, business strategy, early engagement with key, not just technical teams, but service delivery teams, really helps identify areas of risk, areas of opportunity, areas of efficiency. That's one of the things that bring in consultants can assist with, is hosting, managing, facilitating those engagements to ensure that voices are heard, risks are logged, opportunities are recognized, and that we have assurance that all stakeholders have been engaged as part of the program. Stakeholder engagement is key in ensuring that what you're delivering is fit for use.
I think, as we said before, the communication is really key in this with any change like this, because if you don't have that buy-in, then we shouldn't underestimate the impact that has on the team, because a change like this will affect everybody in some way.
Absolutely.
And you don't want it to be a surprise for people or happen, if you like, by stealth.
Absolutely. The last thing you want to happen is all of a sudden, oh, that's a different support team. Oh, you go to this URL now. You go to this webpage to access the service.
Yeah, it's not them anymore. Yeah. So just to finish then, Mark, I suppose, is there anything, any other bits of advice or anything else that you want to that you think is relevant for the listeners out there?
Generally, if they've got any questions, if there are any areas that they'd like clarification on, even just for a chat, always happy to have anyone reach out, get in touch, and we can have the conversation and help you out.
Great, thank you. It's been really great having you here today and to discuss these topics with you. I think they're all really valuable points, and as you say, get in touch if there's anything that you need.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Cantium Podcast in partnership with Public Sector Focus, please subscribe wherever you're listening or by visiting www.cantium.solutions.